Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the ongoing failure of the Home Office to grant the humanitarian aid that a majority of the public, the press and even Conservative MPs are crying out for, as Boris Johnson shoves another mate into the House of Lords in order to create a new ministerial position to deal with our seeming inability to do what every country in Europe has: help refugees from Ukraine. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, news broke yesterday that Boris Johnson has elevated a former Tory MP, Richard Harrington, to the House of Lords in order to make him a Minister for Refugees. Now, there are potentially lots of things that we could discuss here, but the two key questions for me have to be this: why does Boris Johnson need a specific minister just for this task when other countries seemingly do not? And second, if a special minister for some reason is required, why can Johnson not appoint one when he has a large number of MPs currently without a ministerial position? So the first question, why do we need a special minister for this? I strongly suspect the answer to that lies in the fact Priti Patel is Home Secretary. Every country in Europe has granted visa-free access for Ukrainian refugees. Countries surrounding Ukraine are taking hundreds of thousands of refugees, but even countries at this end of Europe are taking way more than we are. Even Tory MPs and the Tory media cannot hide the shame they are feeling at our inadequacy. How are these EU countries, which are supposed to be bound by impenetrable red tape, making quick decision making impossible? How are they able to act so quickly on this matter when the new agile and nimble UK is getting nowhere? The Shadow Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, spoke in Parliament yesterday to ask why the government was contradicting itself. Priti Patel was insisting we had a visa centre set up in Calais. Nobody can find any sign of it. So journalists and politicians alike asked Downing Street about this. What's going on? Downing Street said, don't know what you're on about, mate. No such centre's been set up. On the same day, Priti Patel is insisting in Parliament that it had. Tory MP Sir Roger Gale even called Priti Patel out on this, saying she'd misled Parliament and that this really ought to be a resigning matter. Liz Truss, the Foreign Secretary, tried to smooth things over by going, well, maybe we've set it up in Lille. Yeah, I think Lille, that sounds about right. This morning, Grant Shapps said that they were setting up the centre in Lille. Setting up, which means it doesn't exist yet. And also, when it does, it's 50 miles inland. You know, I've seen the media describe the situation as confused. They probably mean there is confusion between government departments, as they are all saying different things here. And that would be bad enough, because it would indicate that Downing Street is not coordinating with Cabinet over these vital issues. They're not keeping even Cabinet ministers appraised of what's going on. Remember, Tory MPs gave Johnson a stay of execution partially based on the notion that he would have a clear out of his incompetent staff at Downing Street and get better people in. If this is the level of competence possessed by this new team, I can imagine Tory MPs despairing right now. But I would argue that the confusion actually stems from something else. The confusion is down to Priti Patel. See, she was made Home Secretary specifically to be an arsehole. Her job, certainly as she saw it, was to build a big old wall around Britain with massive signs saying "keep out." She's now been told to help facilitate thousands of refugees coming to Britain. She is extremely confused, I imagine. But we're supposed to keep foreigners away. Yes, says the Prime Minister, but these foreigners are good. They're good foreigners? Yeah, the Daily Mail said that these Ukrainian guys are good. So, can you let them in? All right, then. Later on, she's still not letting them in. I thought I asked you to let them in, Johnson says. Well, you know, Prime Minister, I looked into it. And it turns out these Ukrainians, you know, are foreigners. And so it goes on. Priti Patel is incapable of handling what seems to have been a simple issue for literally every single one of her opposite numbers in every government on the entire continent. Bar none. Bar none. This is because she didn't just see it as her job to keep non-economic migrants out, as she would put it, but it's something she seems to have a personal zeal for. So Johnson appoints a new minister to bypass the hapless Home Secretary and get it done to avoid further humiliating ourselves on the world stage. So then the second question, why not just appoint one of his many MPs? Johnson has a larger than average number of unelected ministers, really. He's also not constrained by having a minority government anymore and slim pickings for ministerial candidates. He's got a large majority. There should be some competent ones there. The answer, of course, can only be one of two things. First, he has no regard for many of the MPs who are not currently in his government. Or second, that the ones whom he does have regard for are refusing to serve in his government. Because there will always be MPs who fit one of those categories in any party under any leader. Some MPs are as thick as mince. It's good to keep them away from government. Unfortunately, some of the thickest are not just ministers but in cabinet, so I don't think Johnson can use that excuse. It was suggested that Harrington, who will now become a lord to be able to hold the post, was chosen because of his experience dealing with Syrian refugees under Cameron. Now, it has to be said that we underperformed there as well. Not as badly as now, because we didn't have Priti Patel as Home Secretary at the time. We accepted thousands of Syrian refugees, sure, but it was significantly less than the government said that we were going to. So some have said that this experience would be useful. I mean, after all, he did let some refugees in. I am not remotely convinced, even if we take the view that he did his job well. Apart from anything else, ministers don't actually implement systems. Officials do that. They don't even come up with what the system is. Officials do that. Ministers just decide. Why didn't Johnson appoint a minister from his own MPs and get together the civil servants who dealt with the Syrian refugees? That's the experience you want. Those are the people with the expertise. Those are the people who did it. I said at the time, you do not expect or require ministers to have expertise in anything. They have officials to offer expertise. All we require of ministers is that they have the wisdom to make the right decisions, because they make the decisions when they have received their expert advice. And I still come back to the point that it's not just that some other European countries have managed this without the fuss or the need to add extra government posts. Every single European country, from Bulgaria to Iceland, has organised things to be able to accept Ukrainian refugees without any hassle. The UK alone is making an arse of this. And an arse so bad that even British citizens, people with full British passports who've been living in Ukraine, cannot get into the country with their Ukrainian partners and children. That one should be simple, surely. But now, Patel came up with a complex system of sponsorship as a solution. So Ukrainians can come to the UK if they are family with British residents or if they are sponsored by a charity or an individual. But in each case, you'd best have your paperwork sorted out. What do you mean Putin bombed your paperwork? Go back and get it. Can you imagine that? And I will not apologise for drawing this link. Think about what's happening now. Every country in Europe, including every single EU member state, is telling Ukraine that any people who need to flee can, and they don't need any paperwork at all. No red tape. The UK is saying to the same people, don't bother putting survival items in your backpack. You're going to need that room for the paperwork that you'd best have ready. Brexit Britain is all about the red tape, you see, in stark contrast to the promises. And I am still waiting for the day when more people realise that Brexit isn't simply not delivering on its promises, but it's actually given us more of what we were told was bad about being in the EU. I mean, when we're in the EU, be honest, we never had any EU paperwork to deal with. I never had any. You never had any. We both know that. Well-meaning people are trying to take supplies to the Ukrainian borders and can't even get passed over. Why? Brexit paperwork required now to transport goods to other countries, which has caught people completely by surprise. I did warn of this at the start of the crisis. I said this would happen, and people would be better off donating to charities directly dealing with the refugees. It's very nice of individual communities to club together to send supplies. It shows what Britain really is, not this government. But this is Brexit. You just can't do things anymore. Just like our government can't seem to do anything. And I get why the front bench can't, but I would love it if just one MP today could stand up in Parliament and ask why every single EU country is managing Ukrainian refugees without the need for red tape, but the UK is bombarding them with mountains of paperwork. The only thing the UK is leading the world in is shame. If you could sell that, we would be rich indeed. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.